So since we got to wait for the head gasket to come in, I'm waiting on some harnessing for the 3020. I'm going to do these injectors quick, recondition some injectors quick. And so there's a snap ring right here. In that little, I'm upside down, in that little groove. That little groove is a little tiny wire snap ring. There's usually an O-ring. So he sits there. There's usually an O-ring, then the snap ring. But I got one that is froze on there. So I got it cracked loose. So now I just let it soak for a bit and then use the impact gun and see if we can't get it spinning. And then, yeah, there we go. There we go. Yep, so we'll get him off. Then just take some time and clean everything up. Wire brush everything, and then we'll get into popping in some new nozzles. Well, I'm actually pretty happy how well them things shined up, boy. I just used a wire wheel, ain't nothing fancy or special. 1/4-inch bolt, cut the head off, put a slot down the side with a thin little die grinder cutoff wheel, fold up some emery cloth, and now you got a homemade flat brush. We'll spin him in and whoop, and we'll polish up that inside a little bit. Oh. So I just kind of pre-wind it up. Well, I might have too much emery cloth on here. Ooh. That's fancy. That is fancy. Well, that cleaned up really nice. So now let's pop them apart and see what it looks like inside an injector. Well, there we go. There's your parts. So your nozzle sits like that. There's that body that you see. So your nozzle, this stem actually goes down inside. So he sits like that. He sits like that. You have a little kind of guide for the spring, your shim pack, and your other body. And how it works is you got a couple roll pins to orientate it. And there's a little tiny hole right there by my thumb tip. Boop, that little tiny hole. And he goes through there, and he goes into your valve, or into your tip valve. We're on fuel, not hydraulics. And he goes through this body and gets underneath here. And he lifts it up, and then it takes, that's where it takes you 3,500, 4,500, depending on your nozzles, PSI, to lift this needle up against that spring, and then the fuel then goes out that tip. Boop. And pretty simple. So we'll just get everything cleaned up. We'll get this blasted out between air and ether. I'll get this cleaned out. These parts, this is junk. These parts we will take and dunk into the diesel fuel that we're going to reuse these parts. We'll dunk into diesel fuel for its final rinse after a good air cleaning. And so, yeah, there's actually a little, I believe that's a delivery valve kind of deal. So if I try this, yep. So that's kind of a one-way check valve. So from that pressure, you can't get a wave of energy going back out the fuel line. So yeah, now you've seen it. So let's get her cleaned up. All right, so we come out of the diesel fuel bath, get put on here, and I'll open up the nozzle as I'm going to use it. And I think I might give everything one last ether spray before it goes together. And on this intermediate piece, you can see one side's got a taper seat to it, and the other side doesn't. So we know that this tapered side comes to the body side. And so we'll just ether everything clean, put it together, and see how it performs. It's funny because the ether, you can see a little thin layer of stuff drip off. Drop our shims in, drop our spring in, drop our little spring guide, and then we make sure we put this on the right way. Put him on the right way. And he comes out. I just give it a spin, it's not stuck. We look really good. That ether makes it cold. Just hold everything there. There you go. There's your injector. They're supposed to go to 55 pounds. So let's see. Yep, that should be 55 pounds. We'll double check it in the vise, but 55 pounds of torque. So I'll do these other ones and then we'll put them in the vise and double check with the torque wrench, but I'm pretty sure I can do 55 pounds by hand. So we'll put these others together. All right, so they're together. Notice we use actual Bosch parts. All right, let's grab this injector. How do I put that in there? Do. Give him a good snugging. We'll go over here. I got my torque wrench on the cart here somewhere. Dig all this stuff out of the way. Here we are. All right, let's take him. We gotta take him over there, and I was on that 30-20. So we don't need 115. There's 50. There's 55. There's 55. We'll put him on there, and you're gonna hear the tick of the torque wrench Yep. There you go. Told you I can do it by hand. Told you I can do it by hand. All right, so he's good to go. Let's grab the other ones and double check my torquing, and then they are ready to go back into the tractor when the injection pump is done. All right, so they all passed tech or spec on torquing. So let's get our tip tester down and give them all a pop test. So what we want to do is a pop test like we did last time. But this time, we're looking for more performance out of them. So not performance like we've improved horsepower, but performance as in there's other parameters. So instead of just seeing where the pressure pops at, we know that the spray pattern is going to be great. That they're, but we want to kind of hold. So if they pop at 3,000, we want to hold at 2,800 and make sure we don't have leakage out of the body and that we don't have dripping out of the tip. And so, yeah, kind of impressive that, if these are set to pop at 3,000 pounds, that parts are machined perfect enough to hold that 3,000 pounds through them several different surfaces without leaking. And so that's what we just want to give a little more inspection. Like them other injectors I did, the goal there was just a pass-fail. Anything we saw goofy on the tip was a failure. So we're going to test these a little bit different, or we're going to look at them a little differently. All right. Right at 4,000. Perfect. But we hold pressure at 3,500, and we just keep holding and holding and holding, and the pressure will just slowly bleed off. That's just how this tester is. So then we get another bite, and we just keep holding and holding and holding, and we don't see any leaking. We don't see any tip drop. Perfect pop snap. Hey, one and done. So don't even bother with the others, right? Same thing, number two, pop, right at that 4,000. And we do the same thing, hold. Keep holding. Grab another bite, keep holding. No leakage at the body. I like it. Right in our face, oh man. Never sees where this nut rides. So then we don't ever have to worry about that binding up again. I can't do that one-handed, but we'll get them retaining nuts on there, and then that snap ring of it all. I gotta call John Deere and get the O-ring, and then the washer at the bottom. And then on our return side, this tractor had an O-ring on the return fitting, so we'll have to get that O-ring. Yep. Otherwise, there we go. How about that?